Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. Today, we're going to be taking a closer look at Underground to Canada by Barbara Smucker, and specifically Chapter 6. It's an intense chapter, guys, so if you haven't read it yet, maybe take a pause, go check it out, and then come back and join us. Because we're about to unpack all the heavy stuff, the symbolism, the emotional weight of it all. We're really getting into the heart of the story now. Jewel Healy's journey has taken a turn, and she's landed in a place that's about as far from hope as you can imagine.
Yeah. You know what really hits me about this chapter is how Smucker contrasts Jill Shelley's old life at Massa Henson's plantation with this new reality at Massa Riley's. I mean, even though life under Massa Henson was tough, it had moments of, community, even some joy. But here, it's like the air itself is heavy with despair.
Yeah, like that feeling of despair is almost a character in itself.
Exactly. It's woven into the descriptions the way Smucker describes the slave girl's cabin as listless, no good place. It's a huge shift, and it really throws Jewel Shelley into this deep pit of hopelessness.
It's palpable, isn't it? And it's in this incredibly oppressive environment that we meet Liza, this hunchback girl who really becomes a central figure in the story. We see the scars of slavery literally etched onto her body, bent back, scarred legs. It's a constant visual reminder of the cruelty of Sims, the overseer.
Yeah, her physical condition is more than just a detail. It's like a symbol of that dehumanizing violence that was built into this system of slavery. It makes you wonder how hope can even exist in a place like that.
That's the question, isn't it? And yet Liza is resilient. Even though she's experienced so much trauma, she's not broken. She shows Julie Ucoli kindness, shares her food, offers words of comfort. It's like these small acts of humanity become acts of resistance in a place where everything is designed to strip them of their humanity.
Absolutely. It's like tiny sparks of defiance. And
Mhm.
you know what makes it even more powerful? Liza tried to escape before, remember? She was caught and punished brutally. But she still has that capacity for compassion. It's amazing.
It really is. And speaking of powerful moments, one that really struck me was when Liza shares her father's words with Julie. He said, "The soul is all black or white, depending on the man's life and not on his skin."
What a statement,
It
right?
is such a powerful statement. And coming from a preacher, it's like it gives Liza and Julie this moral compass, this way to navigate the complexities of their situation.
Yeah.
It allows them to judge the actions of those around them like Sims and recognize that true worth isn't tied to skin color but to character.
Right. It's like a reminder that even within this horrific system of slavery, people found ways to hold on to their values to define right and wrong. It's incredibly powerful.
I agree. And that idea of moral judgment is so important because the whole system of slavery was designed to strip away agency and humanity. By holding onto those beliefs, Liza and Julie, they maintain a sense of dignity and hope even in the face of, constant degradation. Speaking of degradation, Smucker doesn't shy away from showing us the brutal reality of how these people were treated. One of the most disturbing scenes is the one where the children are forced to eat cornmeal mush out of a trough. I mean, it's more than just a description of their meager food.
It's a visual metaphor, right? It's like by showing them eating like animals, Smucker is emphasizing how the system tried to reduce them to, beasts of burden. It's such a stark contrast to what Julie remembers from Massa Henson's plantation, where at least there was a sense of community during mealtimes.
It's dehumanizing.
Yeah.
And that control extends beyond mealtimes, too. We see it in the introduction of the crocker sack and the battling stick. These everyday objects, they become symbols of the poverty and deprivation that define their existence.
Yeah, the crocker sack, that rough garment they're forced to wear, and the battling stick used to beat the dirt out of their clothes. It highlights just how physically demanding and difficult their lives were. These objects become representations of their constant struggle for basic needs.
And as Julie's taking all of this in, you can see her fear and anxiety growing. She's worried about Sims, about what the cotton-picking season will bring.
Yeah, and that anxiety, it goes beyond just herself, doesn't it? She's worried about the other children, Adam, Ben, Lester, but most of all her own mother, Mammy Sally.
It's that constant threat of family separation hanging over them.
Mm.
That psychological torture that's just another layer of cruelty in this whole system.
Exactly. And it makes those little moments of defiance and kindness stand out even more. Julie deciding to help Liza pick cotton from those higher branches.
It's a small gesture, but so meaningful in this context. It's like Julie actively choosing to ease Liza's burden to show solidarity in a situation that's designed to pit them against each other.
It's a really beautiful example of how, even in the most horrific situations, that human connection and kindness can still exist.
And then there's Sims, laying out his twisted philosophy. He says, that man thinks a slave is just like a workhorse. If you act like a workhorse, you get along just fine. If you don't, it's the cat o' nine tails on your back.
It's chilling, right? He's basically saying he sees them as nothing more than tools for labor. No human worth beyond their ability to work.
It's that kind of thinking, that dehumanizing ideology,
Yeah.
that was used to justify the whole institution of slavery.
And it makes Sims even more menacing as a character. He represents the brutality at the heart of the system. But even in the face of all this darkness, there are still these whispers of hope.
You're talking about that scene with Julie and Liza whispering about Canada, aren't you? That land of freedom that feels so impossibly far away, yet so tantalizingly close in their imagination.
Exactly. It's like this tiny seed of hope planted in the barren soil of their despair. That shared dream passed down through generations, it speaks to the resilience of the human spirit, the refusal to give up hope even when faced with unimaginable suffering.
And that hope is what keeps them going.
Mhm.
It's what fuels their resistance, both big and small. And it makes me eager to see what happens next in their journey.
That hope, it's like a lifeline for Julie and Liza, isn't it? Like, even in the darkest moments, it gives them something to cling to.
It does. Yeah. You know what else strikes me about this chapter? Um, is how Smucker uses these everyday objects to show just how deep the suffering really goes for the slaves. Like, it's not just about the physical hardship, it's about stripping away their humanity.
Exactly. It's in those little details, like the way she describes the Crocker sack as more than just a piece of clothing. It's like a symbol of their poverty, their lack of control, their status as property instead of people.
It is. And then the battling stick, too. The image of them beating the dirt out of their clothes,
Hmm.
it emphasizes how physically demanding their lives are, just trying to maintain a basic level of cleanliness. And it's made even harder by the conditions they have to live in.
It's a world away from Jules Sully's life at Massa Henson's plantation, right? There she had chances for self-expression, moments of community.
Yeah.
Here under Sims, every single thing is controlled and dictated.
It's like they're under a microscope,
Yeah.
constantly being watched and punished.
Right.
Remember that scene where Sims whips the old man for working too slowly? It's a reminder that, age and weakness don't protect you from his cruelty.
It shows you just how little Sims cares about, their vulnerability. He doesn't see individuals. He just sees workers. And anyone who doesn't meet his standards well, they face the consequences.
It's brutal. And you can see how Jewel Dealey's initial dislike of Sims turns into this deep despair. It's like the weight of the system is crushing her. You almost wonder how anyone could resist in such a hopeless place.
That's where those small acts of defiance and kindness become so important. They're like those tiny sparks of light in the darkness. They remind us that even in the face of cruelty, the human spirit can endure. Remember Julie helping Liza with the cotton?
Right. It might seem small, but it's huge in this context. It's Julie choosing to ease Liza's burden, to show support when everything is designed to make them compete against each other.
Exactly. It shows the importance of community and helping each other out as a form of resistance. It's what keeps them going.
And it's even more powerful when you think about that constant threat of family separation. Julie worrying about her mother and the other children, that fear of losing the people you love.
It's another level of torment, right? It shows how insidious slavery was, how it aimed to not only break them physically, but to destroy those bonds that gave them strength.
And yet they find ways to resist Liza, trying to escape even though it didn't work. And those words from her father about the soul being black or white depending on your actions, not on your skin.
Such a powerful statement. It challenges the whole foundation of slavery, doesn't it? That idea of defining people solely based on their skin color.
It's them taking back their moral authority, judging their oppressors by a higher standard. It's incredible.
And it's through those acts of resistance, both the big and the small ones, that they hold on to that hope. Remember that final scene, Julie and Liza whispering about Canada?
Yeah, that distant land of freedom. It feels like such a fragile dream in that moment.
But it's there, like a seed planted in their hearts, just waiting for the right time to grow. And it makes you wonder what other forms of resistance might be happening, Underneath the surface, what are those unseen acts of courage that keep that hope alive?
It's like that whisper about Canada becomes this driving force for Juliet. Even though it's so far away and uncertain, it gives her a sense of hope in all this despair.
It does. It really does. It's like planting a seed, right? A seed of hope and resistance that's going to keep growing throughout her journey. And you know what? Smucker's done a great job of showing us Julie Leahy's character so far, right? She's observant and empathetic, and she's starting to show this quiet determination.
She is. She's not just sitting back and taking it.
Yeah.
She's connecting with others, offering support, and finding those little ways to push back against, the dehumanization. Like when she shares her lunch with Liza, it seems small, but it says a lot about her.
Exactly. It's that compassion and that growing sense of solidarity with the other slaves. And you got to remember, this is all happening under the constant threat of punishment. So even the smallest act of kindness becomes an act of rebellion.
Makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What other acts of resistance might have been happening on that plantation that we don't see in the book? You know? What other stories of courage and defiance were there?
That's a great question. Maybe it was a song passed down through generations with a hidden message of hope, or a coded message sewn into a quilt, you know, a secret language between mothers and daughters.
Or maybe they met in secret under the cover of darkness to share stories and comfort each other and plan for a future beyond the plantation. Those subtle forms of resistance, the ways they held onto their dignity, it's powerful.
It is, it really is. And I think Smucker is inviting us to think about those hidden stories, to imagine all those acts of resilience and courage that might have gone unnoticed but were so important to their survival.
It reminds us that history isn't just about the big events and movements. It's about those everyday acts of courage and compassion and defiance that change individual lives and lead to bigger transformations.
And those small acts, they can have a ripple effect, inspiring others and paving the way for real change.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Chapter 6 of Underground to Canada, I keep coming back to that image of Julie and Liza whispering about Canada. That dream of freedom like a tiny flame in the darkness. It's a powerful image, and I think it'll stay with us as we continue to follow Julie's journey.
It will. And for everyone listening, keep that image with you too. Keep exploring those hidden stories, keep asking those tough questions, and keep diving deep into the stories that illuminate our past and inspire our future.